The Survivor specialist Phil, Blake, and Tegwith are back, and casting is now open for
a real PBT incorporation. Phil, Blake, Tag.
Survivor
PBT
casting
crew
is now open for 51 and 52, and we're just kind of diving in. Take a little break from Survivor 50. We've been talking so much about it. We still have so much more of our defining episodes and our everything you need to know about coming out. And we just did the Brant steal. So it's like, you know what? Casting's open. People have been messaging Tegwith, I guess, right? You've been seeing it in the comments, not even messages so much, but comments of like, what do you think it's going to look like after 50? And I thought it'd be a fun conversation for us to just sit down and kind of talk about those big questions of what people think is going to happen, what they're hoping will happen, what we think will happen, and just what we think the show is going to look like. Because obviously 41 looked a lot different from everything that came before it. With kind of how the casting went for season 50, I'm curious how excited they are to bring back 41 to 49 for seasons 51 to 59. So let's dive in. Let's talk all about it. And Blake, you wanted to throw in the PBT there, so I'll turn it over to you first. How's your day going?
Great. It's always a great time to talk about Survivor and its innovation it's had over the last 5 years and where it'll go next, you know?
The always evolving show.
Right. Whether it's evolving or devolving, we're left to figure out every 5 seconds. I think one question I would have for both of you or anybody in the audience is, how many more seasons would you have watched with 3 tribes of 6, the exact same type of like new era? Would you have watched, forget 49 and 50, where we have to watch 49. I believe 49 will happen again. So we already have one of these coming. But if 50 wasn't All-Stars and they did 51 and 52 and 53 and 54, and they just churned these seasons out without changing anything, would you eventually fall out of love with Survivor? And what season would that be?
Tegwith, I'll go to you first.
I think probably I have an answer people won't like. I think I could watch this like this forever. Like, I know that, you know, if I compare, I think I'm pretty good. I came to this conclusion recently. I'm a big Percy Jackson fan. I grew up reading the books, right? But then when the movie came out, the movie is atrocious. If you do not know the Percy Jackson adaptation, the movie is literally so bad compared to the books because the story is not the same, right? And so then when the movie came out, I ended up actually really liking the movie because I was able to separate the movie being its own thing and the books being its own thing. Yes, it's from the same source material, but to me, they were 2 completely different entities. And that's kind of how I treat New Era Survivor versus the rest of Survivor, where, yeah, the rest of Survivor is lovely and amazing, and I adore it. And it's on paper, I prefer it to New Era, but I really think I'm good at separating that. And so I think I could watch this honestly forever. Now, the question is like, at one point would I fall out of super fandom, I think is the big thing, because I think what I would get sick of less so is the show, but I would get sick of the complaints online over and over and over again. And I think that would drive me out of the super fandom because a lot of people are so down on the New Era like layout and format, and I am not one of those people. And so I think I'd be like, you know what, I need to clean my hands of this, the internet of this, and let me just enjoy a TV show I like. I think that would happen before I stop watching the show.
A lot of Tegwith's fans and you know, I won't say our fans because our fans are glorious, but a lot of Tegwith's fans right now are salivating over the idea that there's 36 to 48 people who they can rip the lives apart of over the next 2 years. Like they are so pumped that they have the 18 people coming out for 49. And then they're like, oh shit. And we get to dig up past stuff that we didn't get to dig up on some of these early Survivor players for 50. This is a dream come true. And like, there are people that are literally like sitting down at their computers and like, I can't wait to see the next 36 people who are going to play so I can try to dissect everything about them, get them fired from their jobs, make their loved ones hate them. Like they're stoked for it. Sorry. I'm just, you know, maybe it's not all Tegwith fans, but it's just like, that's where the internet goes. And I do agree. Like that's what gets so tiresome for me. And I know that when we do have Will on the podcast, Will doesn't go on social media at all. He does. I don't even know if he has his own accounts. Like he has like an account on Instagram that he'll post like once every like year from, but whenever we have that conversation, he's like, oh, I'm not seeing that. Is that really this? Is that what I'm like? You don't understand how negative the fandom has gotten in a lot of areas. And again, I'm not talking at everybody. There's people who listen. There's people who comment on our stuff. It's one thing to disagree, but again, it's those people who are trolling, who are like, yo, I haven't gone outside in like 3 years because I think this person might be on Survivor. And I think they did something wrong when they were 7 and might have said a word to somebody that they shouldn't have, or might have like farted loudly in class or something. Like they are really trying to just ruin their lives. So anyway, Blake has his hand on his head already. To answer the question.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Whoa, Blake, now you know what it's
on a question.
now
bro.
you know what it's like to be all of us when we ask you a
interesting question, Blake. Will doesn't actually have social media.
So yeah, Blake, I know Blake
What the
sometimes does
hell?
this. Here's what I will say. I do think that if 50 wasn't coming, I think that a lot of people would have dropped off. To me, it's almost like the Marvel phases, right? It's like, okay, and I'm going to pull this up because how much do I know about Marvel? But it's like I can get through Quantumania and I can get through the Marvels because Deadpool and Wolverine is coming and I want to know the story and like I want to be there for it. And so I think a lot of people were going through the motions to see what Survivor 50 was going to be. If 50 wasn't there, if 50 wasn't going to be returning players, I think one of the smartest things Jeff did was announce that Survivor 50 was going to be returning players as early as he did, because while maybe for some of the players it led to chaos and who's going to get cast and how they're going to change their lives, essentially, for us as fans, we knew, okay, even if we don't like a season, we're going to see returning players soon. But I do think that now you come out of 50, you have all these fans, there have to be changes to the show, because I don't think this is the best part of Survivor, the best version of Survivor by any means. And like, you know, but I'm with you, Teg, with like, we're rewatching Redemption Island right now for Every Season Matters. Redemption Island is so bad. And yet, as I'm sitting here and I'm watching, my wife has never seen it. I'm sitting here watching it. She's watching it for the first time. And there are moments where I'm dying laughing, where I'm like, that is a great scene. Philip is great TV. Like, honestly, some like Grant is entertaining in some aspects. Like, there are things to like about every season of Survivor. And so for me, I could sit down and watch it and I would keep doing this podcast because I enjoy doing this. But 3 tribes of 6, no theme. It feels so similar. And now that we're so far removed from 41, 42, 43, 44, go ahead and list in order the pre-mergers of every one of those seasons. You can't do it anymore. There's some people who can, but for the most part, you start bleeding them together of, wait, which tribe was which? Because it all starts to feel the same. And they're not even really changing the colors up that much. So that's how I feel. Blake, did that answer your question?
Sure. Yeah. It's great.
What about you, Blake? When would you give up?
I think that's why I want to set this as the first backdrop for this little hour and a half we're doing or whatever, is like, I'm glad 50 is happening, but I certainly hope 51 and 52 is in a different direction. And what else could we do in this different direction? And then I think an even further down the road thing is, I don't think Jeff Probst will be around for the 60th season. I think he'll be too old for that. And I think, do we graciously change over? Like Bob Barker got out of the way and Drew Carey did it. And then some other times where it's like, well, we love Alex Trebek, we're going to watch him until he freaking dies. And like, those are 2 different things. I'm not saying Jeff Probst is going to die in those 5 years, but I'm trying to say, we have a 51-52 could be in a new direction, but we also have, if Jeff quits after 56, then I would assume 57 and 58 can't be the exact same thing that 55 and 56 was. And this is a lot of hypothesizing and a lot of, well, what if this? So ultimately, what are we doing? Are we praying to fairies or whatever god we do pray to? Or is it more just like, what are the producers of this show thinking? I think they're hoping that everyone loves 50, but ultimately I think 51 is more important to the franchise moving forward.
And what I will say to you, Blake, is when you're talking about Jeff, I think what we might see from 59 to 60, because I think Jeff will stick out through 60. If he's not going to leave after 50, he'll be 68 at 60. I could see that being the time where he says, like, okay, I'm done at that point. Like, is he really going to go to season 75? At which point then he would be 75. I mean, that would be pretty crazy. So to me, that's what I think. But here's how I think it would go. I think in 59 and 60, you would probably start to see a version of like a co-host or somebody who takes over certain aspects, whether that's challenges, what Jeff just does tribals, somebody else does challenges, to kind of suss out what audiences want. Because look, Australian Survivor is about to go through this. And I think it's crazy. The JLP news was crazy. And Randy's asking Tegwith, your former Randy here from Survivor Now. He's here, right? That is him, right?
What's up, Randy?
That
Yeah,
is
that's
Randy, right? Okay, that
Yeah.
is Randy. From Survivor Now, are you guys buying into JLP potentially replacing Jeff? I think it's very possible. I don't think so, because JLP is also pretty old too. But I think what's more interesting to watch with Australian Survivor is what do they replace JLP with? I know there's a lot of rumors that it's going to be David, who won All-Stars, who obviously just did Deal or No Deal Island. So he has a US and an Australian fan base. He's going to be doing AU versus the world. But is that the route that Survivor would go? Or are they going to go with somebody who's more of a pure host? And I think that's something to look at. I was going to save that for the end, but Blake can't help himself. He brings this up right away because, Blake, why did you do it? As Max Cooper says, it's because you're the GOAT. That's why you did it. Look, you see that?
Goat or goat? That's the real question. You can find out on Tag
Wow.
Talks.
It's just more of, I think if we're saying, I'm expecting that to happen for 59 and 60, and everyone's kind of aware of that, it's like, why don't we just do it for 51 and 52 then? Of like, have some roving reporter, confessional hosts or whatever. Like, Jeff is, what do we like better for Jeff? Do we like him better at Tribal, or do we like him better at Challenges? And I think that's a no-brainer that 87% of people would go, Jeff is so good at Tribal and so not great at Challenges. So
he's great at challenges. He just would do it. He does it where he's inserting himself more than
Phil's getting annoyed by me. Like,
I mean, I just think to say he's not great at challenges is crazy. Go watch the early seasons of Survivor when he doesn't talk. It's weird.
Yeah. Or like watch Big Brother and see what they do instead for the challenges. I will say Big Brother, I like Big Brother a lot, but watching the challenges in Big Brother makes it brutal. And you're just like, these challenges need to end. At least in Survivor, we've got, something.
Blake, are you watching Big Brother 27?
no, I'm taking a summer off for the first time in my life, and look at me, I'm glowing.
Yeah, I've never seen you in a better mood. You're in the Brant Steele mood when Q got the idol played on him by Joe. You're back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but that's genuinely what I think. I agree with you, Blake. I think there's two things to that. If Jeff stays around and if Jeff is trying to like get out a little bit, but Tribal Council is something, show up that night, watch the dailies, do what you have to do, ask the questions. That's something you can do. He's going to be good at that for as long as he's alive. Like, that's just something that Jeff has such a gift for. Being at the challenges is the more physical, the more demanding part. Now, I think Jeff is stubborn, and I'm saying that in a positive way. I think that's why he's probably gotten to the point that he has. Look, Blake, you're laughing at me, but it's true. He's stubborn, and I think he'll want to do all of it. But if he is forced to give up something, because what, CBS, Paramount, they just went through that merger, which now some people are, Colbert just got fired. That show is gone. Now we could have even more stuff going on. People might be thinking maybe The Amazing Race is on its way out. If somebody comes in and says, Jeff, you have to give up one, I do think he'd give up the challenges first. And I think that would be better for the show. Bring in somebody else to do the challenges and then try to figure out how you can make that person better at tribals by the end. But I don't think that's happening until
RuPaul.
How old is RuPaul though? Isn't RuPaul also old?
I think RuPaul is like the same age as Jeff.
Come on, Blake. I know everybody just wants to go with old people here, but I do think that this won't happen until the back half. The earliest this happens is 55 into 56, because they could use 55 as a monumental season, as like it's a 5, do this as some sort of returning player season. You have the short break, bring it back for 56 with a new host or something. On the quick turnaround, people will still tune in, see what the ratings are like, and then decide what you have to do that summer, so that you don't have the long break of people saying, Jeff's not coming back, I'm not going to watch in the fall.
I think Jeff is staying till 60. I think it's my mom. I'm not to compare it to another thing in my life, but my mom's a teacher. She is an advisor to a class, and they get their class their freshman year. And she's like, yeah, I can retire when my class graduates. And then my mom made a decision when her class graduated. She was like, okay, I can either retire or I can, do I can go with another 4 more years. And so I think that's the kind of thing. I think Jeff probably contemplated, I either end it at 50 or I'm gonna go 10 more, which is only 5 years to 60. So I honestly think we're gonna see him at 60. I think 60 will probably be his last one where he retires. And then I think I'm of the in the boat of, I don't think that they should replace him with a former player, because I really think one of the beauties of Jeff and him being a host is he doesn't insert himself in terms of, this is how I did it or how I would have done it, or, comparing it to his game, because he never had a game. He's somebody who can be completely objective because he's never had to put himself through that. He can be ruthless at tribal council because he doesn't know what it's really like to sleep on the ground, and he's not feeling any kind of sympathy towards people who haven't eaten. He can be like, what were you thinking? That's dumb. Like, how would you do that? Because there's no sympathy. And so I think a lot of people are like, well, Jeff should be replaced by Rick Devens. Jeff is going to be replaced by Boston Rob, all of these things. And I just think that is not, because what Jeff brings to the table is objectivity, but then also like somebody who can look at the bigger picture in terms of like the players. And I think that is one of the great parts of him, is he's never actually played the game. And I think that replacing him with somebody who has played the game would be a downfall. I think honestly, one of the big things to look at would be how the Bachelor franchise continued on after what's his name left. I don't watch. Yeah. Because I think that there was a little kind of mix up in the middle there, but then I think people are pretty happy with where it is now. So I think there's something to be learned from that franchise, even though it's so different from Survivor.
And I think going with a former player would be a bad choice, because as I'm rewatching Redemption Island, Boston Rob inserts himself into way too much, right? It's too much about the past seasons. This is how I played, and he's playing a different game than everybody else, right? What I worry about if you go with a past player is then you end up with segments dedicated to them, like Island of the Idols with Rob and Sandra, where we're focusing on Rob and Sandra and they're not playing Survivor. And you get like, wow, I'm coming back. The first 5 minutes of the next episode, or the first 2 minutes, which is too long, is Boston Rob walking out and saying, last week Sandra voted out Blake, and I wouldn't have done that. I think that's a really stupid move. When I was playing, I made this mistake with Kathy and Lex. And like, it would be stuff like that I don't think you can avoid. The only way I think you bring a returning player back to be the host of the show, and again, this I believe also Tegwith would be past 60, is if you're going to bring a returning player back to be the host of the show, it needs to be after the show goes on a hiatus. Because then we're reintroducing the game to people. Let's get one of our people who are in their 30s or early 40s who was big enough on the original version of this show, and now let them be the host. But Blake is shaking his head because I think he just can't imagine a show without Jeff. He's so sad.
No, I love talking about this stuff. I really do. This is what gets my brain moving. I think it's very interesting that we've had 3 major franchises in CBS history. None of them have replaced their host. And every other thing has kind of replaced the host. But everybody thinks, do you think anybody could do Phil Kogan's job? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody could do Julie Chen's job? Yes.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah. So then when people say, I don't know if anybody could do Jeff Probst's job, I'm like, how do you not? If you think the other two, how do you not think somebody could do this one? And it's something where, well, can you have RuPaul's Drag Race without RuPaul? Oh, that one's probably not. But like, they did have his second in command do the 3rd season of the Australian version, and it wasn't the worst, but did it lose out on some views? So like, there are some examples for all of this if you want to be in the reality sphere to go around and look and do all this stuff. But I think what's interesting is the blueprint for Survivor is so blueprinted out that why would we add a Boston Rob segment for 2 minutes to the show if we never did that with Jeff? Like that, I don't think they would fall into that gap. I think they fall into a lot of crevasses, but I think they'd be fine with not realizing like, oh yeah, that wouldn't work. It's just, I feel bad for all the people that were coming out to Los Angeles to be a host or did host classes over the last 15 years and never got a chance to do this, because it is like, this is the best job in the world. Like if Jeff Probst had his talk show blow up and then he became the Tonight Show, somebody else would have been hosting by now. If Jeff Probst had got hit by a car, somebody would have been hosting by now. Mm-hmm. So I think whenever people say like it's Jeff Probst's job until it's not, is kind of like, this is just how the world works. The show will go on, and 4 million people have to be okay with the next person. But like half of those 4 million people are going to be like, oh, I actually like this, maybe even more than I thought I would.
Well,
Yeah.
because I think ultimately, again, sorry, go ahead, Tegwith,
No,
because
no,
I'm going
go,
to
go,
change
go.
the subject off this. So you go.
No, basically
Okay.
all I was going to say is I think it's silly. I've talked to people, even some former Survivor players, who think that the moment Jeff leaves, the show is going to end. And I think that's very silly and because I also don't think Jeff would want that. I think you put your life's work into something, and maybe I don't have the same kind of brain as Jeff Probst, but if I put my life's work into something, I want that to outlive me. I want that to be my legacy. And so I don't think Jeff is somebody who wants it to end with him. And so I think that he will be somebody, and again, maybe this is positive thinking, glass half full kind of look. I think that he will put in the work to find somebody as a good replacement that he deems good. Now, do people want somebody that Jeff deems good? I don't know, but I do think that he'll put in the work to make sure that this is a legacy, because I do think that this will be a Jeff Probst legacy.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes to like MGM still around, right? Everybody's been dead from MGM for a long time. like the founders of that have been dead for a long time. And I think I do agree with you, Tegwith, on that. I think most people who are watching the show nowadays aren't watching for Jeff. And there's some who do. There's some people who it's like the host is the most important thing to me. But at least the people who are listening to our podcast, I think the people who listen to Rob, the people who are diving into all of these other podcasts, who are digesting all of this information, who are going on Reddit and getting in fights with Stephanie LaGrossa right now, like all of the people who are doing that right now, they're not watching for Jeff. The diehards aren't watching for Jeff. You might lose some of your older audience, but Gen Z was born after Jeff started doing this. So to them, Jeff's not the show the way it might seem to some of us. And so for me, what I think will come down to, and this is really what I think is what I kind of want to change the subject to at this point, is it's going to come down to the theming. It's going to come down to the players. It's going to come down to returning players. Like, it's going to come down to what old school things pre-40 that you can no longer use COVID as the excuse for, are you going to go back to? Number of days, having reward challenges, going to maybe different locations. I don't think they'll ever leave Fiji until something happens with Fiji, but like, I think they're just going to keep staying in Fiji. And if that's what keeps the show going, that's what keeps the show going. I'm fine with that at this point, because again, we're in Every Season Matters now. You're watching Nicaragua, then Redemption Island. It's the same location. Like, it's the same spot. Nothing changed there either. But we want to watch it for the characters, and we want to watch it for the gameplay and for that dream and that feeling of we could play it. Like, that's how would we do in that moment? What would we do if we were on the island? That's what the thing about Survivor is that's different from the White Lotus. Like, I can't say, what would I do in that situation? It's like, I don't know. Mike White would have written me in some way. Like, I don't know. So I think that's what will change it. So if we're looking at
Mike White can write complex characters as Phil would,
he would have written me different. No, he would have made me complex. I'm not complex. That's the thing.
Oh my God.
But like when you look at season 51 and 52, how do you feel about, are we going to stick with 24 players? Could we jump to 39 days? Are we going to go back to themes? Are we going to see returning players that quickly? What does your mind tell you about those things? I think those are really the four biggest burning questions. And if Jeff does leave at 60, what the answers to those questions are, I think, is what will determine whether or not the show still succeeds after Jeff's gone.
Yeah.
I'm good to ask another question of like, do you guys think 41 through 48 is a good rebrand, a successful rebrand? Do you think it has innovated in the show at all, or do you think there's going to be some correction for the 51 through 58?
There'll be some correction. I will say, though, I think there are some good things in the new era that we got. And I think that there are some game mechanics that I think are interesting. But I think that truly the overall consensus from the people that I see and the people that I talk to and the people on the internet is that it was a fail. Now, the thing that I think that I have to unfortunately remind a lot of people on the internet is that as much as we love Survivor as entertainment, it's not pure entertainment, because we live in a capitalistic society and everything is there to make money. And I think what happened is they realized, just like every brand on the planet in the, in how we are now, that they could actually save some money by doing some things. And whether we like it or not, I think that there are things that are going to be there to stay because CBS won't put up the money. Because they're like, well, we can get away with it and people are still watching, because people will still watch. And I think that's 26 days. That I think is staying forever. I think Fiji is also staying forever. Maybe not forever, but at least for the foreseeable future. I really don't think they're going to move on that, because I do think they save. So you don't, the amount of people it takes to make this freaking show is crazy. And just the fact that they're cutting it down by 13 days, that's what, 26 days a year plus the extra time to break things down. Like, that's an insane amount of money. And I think that is, those two things are there to stay, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to answer the question about Blake that Blake posed, and I'll answer it directly here. I think that 41 to 44 was a fail. I think 45 to 48 was more of a success. And I think that 45 to 48, they started to find their rhythm with what they wanted the show to be. And I think the biggest thing with that was 90 minutes. I think 90 minutes did make for better TV. I know a lot of people were saying, especially during 45 and 48, some of the episodes of 45, it was like, we knew this was going to happen. Why did we have to watch an hour and a half of this? But that season has some of the best characters of the new era because we were able to dive into them. Why did we only get one person from the first 4 seasons of the new era? Because we didn't get to know them as well as we got to know some of the others. Like, I don't know why Jesse and Carolyn aren't there. I don't know Jesse and Carolyn. I don't know their relationship with production and with CBS. I have no idea. They should have been there. But if they're not, and you look at 45 through 48, we have more time to get to know these players. And so I do think that they figured it out. Now, 48, sure, there's some episodes here that are a slog, that are really, really, really rough. But also, what was it, Blake? We talked about it on the casting episode. First time that they've been nominated for the casting Emmy since the change happened after season 38. So it's like, good things are happening for the people who are working on it. So they're not going to move away from it too much. I think the number one thing that needs to happen, there's 2 things that I think need to happen. I think they need to bring themes back, or at least bring names back. There need to be names for each season. You can't just do 46, 47, 48, 49, because now I don't have a personal attachment to the people in the same way. And then I think that you do need to, when you're looking at bringing the names back, you need to have returning player seasons put into the budget here. There need to be seasons that are going to have people that we can start to build the brand around again, because that's another big thing. If they're looking at the show will go on beyond Jeff, and they are worried that Jeff could be done at 60 because of just age, because time always wins. If that's going to happen, you need to make your players stars, and they'll never hit the level of those Colbys and Hatches and Rudys and Lexes and Ethans and Boston Robs. They won't hit that level, but they don't need to hit that level in today's society. But they do need to hit the level of your Malcolms, who didn't even get asked back for 50, or maybe he was asked, but ultimately was cut. Like, they do need to hit the level of those people who started to become really popular in the 20s and 30s, who might not hit that icon status, who aren't hitting Mount Rushmore status, but are still people that we would watch play again and want to see show back up on our screens, because that's what's going to carry the show through. And putting them into themed seasons is also pretty huge, I think.
Got a couple answers for stuff you guys brought up. They paid Jeff $5 million a year or a season, $5 million a season, or $5 million a year.
Yeah, that I don't know.
So when we don't have Jeff, is that 3.5 million that maybe they pay someone $1 million to host this? A brand new name, $1 million would be crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's probably going to be $400,000 to $600,000 to host a season of Survivor. So if you're saving $4.4 million per season on hosting, I think it's $5 million per season for Jeff. Is that money just going to go straight into, look how much money we saved? Or is that going to go back into the show to, let's spend the money that we spend on Jeff?
They're going to invest?
But like, we may have to, if we don't have Jeff, who we're all thinking the show relies on. I think you have to spend that money. And that's where I would think, like, we can go to 39 days if we have this $4.6 million left over, or whatever expense we have. That is the thing of, are you going to watch every Chris Pratt movie because of Chris Pratt? Or would you watch a different, like, I would watch a random 36-year-old man who's kind of attractive do the same movie, or I'm only doing it if it's, and that's how Hollywood works. Also, my thought process with what you're talking about of themes and stuff for the future, how do we make more stars? And I think that's something where I think one that they have agreed on is Genevieve. And it's like, what is Genevieve a star of? And it's like, we've had people who are the same age as her and same gender and same power player, but she is feeling feelings we've never seen on the show before of I can and I am good at backstabbing people, but boy, do I not like this. And she's having real moments on the thing. And that's a thing where I'm like, when you have game bots, when you have super fans, you have people who are kind of like, all right, I know damn full well Phil's gonna hate me after this podcast because I'm gonna blindside him at minute 55, and then I'm gonna take the last 5 minutes of the podcast and win the $1 million. But I think it's such a unique balance with casting where if you find people that are like so far the other way with Genevieve of like, I don't want to get rid of my best friend, then they're not like players that should be on the beach in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can go watch multiple seasons of Survivor where you're like, how the hell did this person get cast? They don't have a killer instinct. They don't have a lovable backstory. They don't have a, like, I guess they were there was a time, they're in a beauty pageant. Like, is that important to this thing? So I think what we saw from 41 to 48 and 49 is coming around is you can tell that this cast is going to be from 41 to 49 through a lot of thought processes. I think they should take the best parts of that and keep them around and then put in a different barbecue sauce or honey mustard or like, we haven't done this in 10 years. Like, go back to the original recipe of like Domino's came out and was like, I know you guys think our pizza tastes like cardboard. We're going to completely change the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was some of the advertisements for 51 of like, you just watched blank. You just watched Coach win. I don't know if Coach, you just watched Coach win. That's that time. Now here's the new door opening and like, who's the new coach?
Coach is on 50. That's crazy. He's so quiet about it. I didn't know.
Oh.
I think Chris Mack talks to us. I think Blake is hungry because you're making those comparisons. I think that what you're saying there regarding this makes sense. And I think what it comes to for me is it felt like when 41 happened, because we had the year off because of COVID and because we were coming off such a massive season and it was a winners at war, it felt like a time that production made the decision to say, we are done with everything before this. Like, we're going to make a clean break. And it almost feels like that backfired on them a bit, where it didn't go as smoothly as they wanted. 41, 42, 43, 44 weren't as well received. So then they started saying, okay, but we want to make this the new era. We don't want to start bringing back people from pre-40, all that. Now they do 50. Now they're back to bringing back people pre-40. I think that this is more of their way of saying, okay, 41 through 49 is their entire own thing. When you start 51, you can't throw away everything that came in the first 50 seasons like they did with 40. They threw away way too much. It led to bad twists like the hourglass. It led to strange casting decisions, as we can only pretty much name 4 people from Survivor 44. Like, it's really, really, really tough with some of the things they did in the early portion of 41 to 49 of the new era. I don't know how you all feel. I'm okay with a half and half season at this point. Give me half newbies, give me half returning players, whether that's blood versus water, fans versus favorites, some other iteration of that. I don't think I ever want to go back to captain seasons because I think that leads to too much silliness and too much just like, oh, we can either treat this person like a god or just vote them out. And neither one of those things is particularly interesting. So I don't know if I want to go back to captain seasons, but a half and half season and a theme like that is good. We don't just need a full returning player season, but try to build your stars out of a half and half season. It worked with Sierra. It worked with Eric Reichenbach. Still, the most iconic moment in the history of the show is from a half and half season. And I think that's what they need to do. And they need to find a way to bridge that gap and build their legends that way, because that's what's missing right
1,000%. I really think so. I made a video about this, honestly, a little bit ago, that I think 50 is going to open the floodgates. I think we're going to get a lot of returning seasons. I think we're going to get one full. I think we're going to get one half, and I think we're going to get two captains. I do think that there's just a backlog of players that we want to see. And now, granted, whether or not these players want to play, but in the announcing 50 did a couple of different things. Number one, it did bring up the excitement of 50, but it also, saying that it was a fully returning season, it showed, in theory, it showed casting, CBS and Paramount, and just all of them, Survivor in general, who we want. The uproar that Jerry didn't get cast, the uproar that Carolyn and Jesse didn't get cast, the uproar that, Davey didn't, all of these people that we knew were cut from 50, for example, they see very singularly how upset we got over that. And now, granted, whether or not these players actually want to play after being kind of jerked around for a little bit, I don't know, but there is evidence that we would be excited for them to come back. I think there is no way we don't get another second chance of season in 50s. I think that's just inevitable. I think there is also even a possibility of a blood versus water. I really feel like there could be a blood versus water coming up. So I really think that that is a big thing that they are going to lean on, because they're like, look at all of these amazing players we have. Let's continue to bring it back, because I think there's also going to be a hangover, kind of like after Heroes versus Villains, right? Early 20s are rocky.
The worst. You can say it, Tegwith. It's the worst. We're suffering through it right now. Blake watched one episode last night and texted me and was like, holy shit.
Yeah. So it's not great. And so I think that leaning on returning players like they did also in the early 20s, which didn't really help, but it definitely I think it brought people back. Like, people are always going to want to watch Boston Rob. People are always going to want to watch Russell, unless your name is Tegwith. People are going to want to watch Ozzy. There are people who are going to want to watch these people. And I think the new era, that is Carolyn, is Jesse, Omer. There are people that people are just going to want to watch. And I think that it would be silly of them to not utilize that. And I think they will utilize that.
Their numbers for 50, I think, are going to be the best numbers they've had for a season, probably since 41 or whatever season's the best of the new era. They're going to, the numbers decline. That's just how it goes when you're making a show that's been on for this long. But I do think that 50 is going to be the best numbers they've had in a very long time. I think that people are going to be really excited to watch, even if it only lasts for an episode or two. Say Colby and Jenner are the first two people voted out. Well, you just lost the early people. Your people who are like, oh my God, Colby's back on my screen. Maybe you lose them after episode 1, but you're going to have an episode in there that's going to make the Joe and Eva episode look like small potatoes. And so when I think about that, the biggest problem of the 20s that I'm realizing, the early 20s that I'm realizing now that I'm rewatching, is they didn't lean in hard enough to the returning players. They relied on returning players, but they didn't feel like they wanted to go all the way. Go all the way. Season 21 was no returning players, but you're stunt casting Jimmy Johnson. Season 22, you bring back 2 players. Season 23, you bring back 2 players. Season 24, you don't bring back any. Season 25, you bring back 3. Season 26, you do half and half. 27, half and half. Go all in if you're going to do this. That doesn't mean 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. You still want these seasons to feel special. And you don't want Survivor to turn into the Traitors, right? That's not what Survivor is supposed to be. Because we have seen somebody like Chris win a season that is half and half, or a captain season. Most of the time it's won by a returning player, but not every time. And so when I look at Sophie, what they need to do coming out of this, if 51 is all newbies, maybe 52 should be all returning players. If 53 is all newbies, maybe 54 should be fans versus favorites, not captains, not let's get 1 or 2 and try to make them stars, because then they overshadow everybody else. And then all of a sudden, all you have is Cochrane. But maybe you need to make it where you're leaning in a little bit harder. And that's going to be better ultimately for this era, and make it so we don't have as much of a hangover. Because pretty much every time they've done a monumental season, the next season has sucked. 21's bad. 41 is bad. I love Vanuatu, but I also understand that people don't talk about Vanuatu because it's the disappointment of being after All Stars, being before Palau. People don't love that.
You go first, Teg.
Well,
Yeah,
I just want
Blake's
to say
saving up.
you made me think of this. While I don't want them to go full traders all the time, I do think there is something to stunt casting a reality competition themed Survivor season. Do 3 tribes of Big Brother, a Big Brother tribe, a Survivor tribe, and an Amazing Race tribe. We've seen the Amazing Race do it. And that is, I started watching The Amazing Race because Survivor players were on that. And so I think another way to avoid a full returning player, and I'm not saying doing this all of the time, but I do think that is something that, why not one season? Because I think even if you don't want to do Amazing Race, do a challenge tribe, something, because they're all owned by the same people, right? So I just think that there is a world in which they could actually utilize this, if not just to get new fans on board, because I truly think Survivor is a show that if you watch enough of it, you will become a fan of it. And I think that it's not, well, I don't want it to happen all the time, and I don't want them to go full traders. I don't think it would be bad for them to do that once in the 50s.
Blake, so now jump in, Blake.
Woo!
You've been on like a 6-minute break so that we can all just we'll just mute ourselves and let him go.
I'll go get some water.
It's funny because if you were like, when would the shark jump be where you would be done with the show, even though you're vastly involved in a podcast and it behooves me to love the show. Boy, did Tegwith just say it. if there's ever a Big Brother tribe, a challenge tribe, and an Amazing Race tribe, I'm out. I'm not watching that season. I do think that's going to be the signpost of we have given up on making our own quality, and we are like, Survivor has a sense of prestige. I think they have a huge ego. That is why Carolyn is not 13th place on the next season of Survivor, because it is like, if you want to go somewhere else, you're not in our club anymore. And the
I would argue though, D did the challenge.
D's
right
winner.
Yeah.
Don't worry. There are people that have, unfortunately for Carolyn, there's different rules for everybody. And Cirie can do whatever the hell she wants, and she can come back too. There's plenty of them there. I think one other point I want to get out of me real quick is, if you want to participate in this mindset for yourself and you're in the chat right now, I challenge you to go to your favorite Survivor like content creators, Survivor podcasters, Survivor video. I don't know if we have React people in the Survivor community, but go to your favorite Survivor people right now and what kind of content are they putting out this summer? And everybody's on the 50. So it is kind of like, is CBS going to see that? Of like, the fans like this shit. Should we do this more often? Or do these fans only like this because we do it so infrequently? And I think the Phils and Wills of the world can see the trends in their own algorithms on YouTube, where it would be dumb for us to not think CBS is seeing these trends, or in my opinion, CBS would be dumb to not go through these trends themselves. So I do think there will be more. We didn't have one from all the way from 40 to 50. I would say there's probably going to be 1 year where they shoot 2 All-Stars back to back, like a 55 or 56 is one's Blood versus Water and one's a captain season. I would expect that. Like, that's what makes sense in my entertainment brain to do. And like, I think there's the thought process of, when Jeff knows this is his last year, what does Jeff want to do? And here's your blank check. Thank you for making a complete like cultural touchstone for generations of people. What is your, and what do they call that season? And what happens then of like, yes, let's have legends versus these people that are so nerdy and should never be on the show, and watch some of your favorite people beat the crap out of super fans one last time. Like, I know Jeff loves when people get owned and it's like, yeah, you thought Survivor was easy, didn't you?
You're going to get, if that is the last season, you're going to get that challenge from Heroes Villains with Sumo at Sea or whatever. you're going to get that between a tribe of people that look like Jonathan and a tribe of people shaped like David Wright. That is going to be the challenge. And that is going to be the whole thing. And Jeff's going to be like, shockingly, 15-0. We're playing a 75. Like, and it's just going to be until the people turn to dust. No, I do agree with you, Blake. Like because what I think Survivor really needs to be careful about if they start going Big Brother, Amazing Race, too many Survivor returning player seasons is becoming the challenge, right? You need to differentiate yourself from the challenge. You can't be a new viewer of the challenge anymore. I tried it during COVID. It's horrible.
So bad. It's
because
been bad for 10 years.
You need to know the relationships of everybody. And they bring in new players. I know Sydney's on it. Dee's on it. Michelle's been on it. Cassie's been on it. Like, I know that there was even a season where like Tommy and Tyson and Dom and all these guys, you can try to bring new people in. But I don't know what Aneesa is talking about with Corey and all that. Like, I have no idea who these people are. Blake, are you waving your hand at me for a reason?
No, I'm just like, the fact that we're mentioning Aneesa at all is like, get off of my fucking screen.
And that's
you've been on my screen wasting time of people that are 10 times more interesting and 10 times more likely to win a season. But I have to always check in to see what Aneesa thinks, and nothing she's ever said in 15 years has ever happened.
And
how are the producers still putting her on the show? How are they still asking her questions? And how are they still editing it?
He's not done
for people to hear. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing she says makes sense.
Here's the thing. And that's what Survivor needs to be careful of, because we're coming into Survivor 50 where Sari and Ozzy are starting on the same tribe for the third time in their time, right? They've both played 5 times. We've seen this so much. But we can trace back to, why is this fun? Why is Stephanie versus Sari fun? Why is Colby and Stephanie being on the same season and, playing on the same potential, being on the same tribe? We know the interactions with everybody. If you start getting to the point where it's like, well, on 53, Aubrey, Rizzo, and Colby were on it. But on 54, it was Aubrey, Colby, and Sari. And then on 55, it was Sari, Rizzo, and that's what you can't have. And that's what happens with the challenge. Like, you have your staples, but then they miss a season. It's like, oh, that person won, because it no longer matters. You're watching that for pure entertainment, and that's it. That needs to be the that's what Survivor needs to be careful of. So when I'm saying go returning player season, again, I'm still saying every other season or so. And Blake, you brought up the numbers. Game changers, winners at war, second chance. Those are our best numbers across the board on this podcast. It's not close with other things. You might get a random Millennials versus Gen X episode. The Michaela boot is a big one that comes to mind. You might get a random episode from Edge of Extinction. I think Devin's coming back was a really good episode for us. But for the most part, it is these returning player seasons that kill it. And I think CBS is going to see that, and then they need to make up their minds of, okay, what can we do? Can we do another game changer season and call it something else and make it that random of a cast and hope that it works out better than the first game changers? And can we maybe do Fans vs. Favorites 3, Blood vs. Water 3? Is there another iteration of that we haven't thought of yet that could be fun? I think that those things are coming. And I think that's when you're going to start to see the show shine, because they're not going to go the Karamoan route where it's like, oh, aren't you so happy we brought back Philip and Francesca to have their one argument a second time? Blake breaks his computer. It's like, no, we don't want that. Yeah. Bring back real favorites. And I think there are so many, and you can't tell me that the casting team at Survivor and the producers at Survivor aren't sitting there going, oh man, like, this is who people are most mad about. The interns are pulling quotes from X and Instagram and TikTok from other from other just randoms, like random accounts, Stan accounts, all of that stuff. Star updates got quoted during the last season on the Survivor CBS podcast on the Instagram account. That's crazy. People are seeing it. And if you're seeing it, now is the time to act. And this is the way I think that you need to act. And these are the players that we are most desperate to see. If they're in, bring them back, figure out what you need to do. I bet you 51 is all newbies. 52, I think, has a potential to be a half and half season. I think 53 is probably all newbies, but 54, 55, one of those seasons is a full returning player season. And there's no doubt about it. And that won't be the first time we see players return in the new era. In 51 beyond. It will not be season 55. We will see some returning players before season 55 for sure.
I totally agree. And I also just want to say, I think it's really interesting to look at, I think the thing that, and we talked about this, we touched on this a little bit earlier, that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with is just the numbers, right? Is just not having any kind of theme at all. But at the talkback that we saw Kelly Nalbandian's boot. It was like a screener for fans. And Jeff was there, and somebody asked, will themes ever be back? And Jeff basically said, like, I hated searching for themes that really didn't impact anything. He felt like he was like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Jeff was staying up till midnight every night going through themes.
His hair was all crazy, whiteboard. It's like, what are we gonna do?
Charlie Day.
Yeah, he was exactly that's what it was. That's actually where Charlie Day came up with the idea. But I just really think that like that is I think there's a tightrope that needs to be walked of themes. For the sake of having themes is not necessarily a good thing. They need to come up with good ideas that can differentiate each season, that it's not just numbers, because we know they're not going to move, like, right? They can't name after the location anymore. And they're doing, I think I've said this before on this podcast, they're doing themes light, right? So there was the bird season, there was the night season, there was the bat season, there's a pirate season, right? So we have themes light. And I just am like, why go all in? Figure out a fun little tagline. If it's a new cast, come up with a gimmick. Come up with a gimmick. We've seen 1,000 gimmicks. People love Brains, Beauty, Brawn. Just do that again. If people aren't going to be mad about that. You love 3 tribes. There you have it. Like, it works. But I think that the main, like, a really big complaint is like people can't differentiate. And I saw this comment earlier over on the side, but somebody saying the casting in this new era really made up for a lot of the flaws in production. And I couldn't agree more, because I do think that there are some really good casting choices that they made. Some I don't necessarily agree with, but some that I think are really good that did kind of hide the flaws of the production. And I think if they could just heighten the production and really kind of make it easy for fans to differentiate and understand what's going on, but still have that same, casting, I think that there's nowhere to go but up, honestly.
I agree. And for me, it's like Survivor Borneo wasn't always called Survivor Borneo. It was just Survivor, right? It retroactively became Borneo. It's like Star Wars became A New Hope. It was Star Wars until it became A New Hope. And I feel like I would even be okay if they did that. If it was like, and I'm not saying spoil the season, Survivor 48, the season of pairs, like, Jeff, you kind of gave that one away a little early there. I don't necessarily love that. But even if it was like, Survivor 49, Chaos Island, like, who cares? Just call it something so that we can go back and say it was Chaos Island. Because look, Game Changers, when they put that cast out, that is our second highest viewed video on the channel, is our Survivor Game Changers cast reaction video. Second highest, only behind the Sarah Lucina tell-all after Winners at War, which is hilarious that those are our 2 highest videos, because like they couldn't be more different. But people thought the Game Changers cast was one of the stupidest things ever assembled. That's what's kind of made it memorable. People remember Game Changers because it's the returning player season that makes no sense. Why are JT and Sandra on the same season as Haley Ford? It makes and Caleb. Like, it makes no sense at all. And that's what's made it more memorable. You remember that season because you're like, oh yeah, Game Changers. That's when Sierra Dawn Thomas was on, because I forgot Sierra Dawn Thomas was even on a season before that one. And that's what helps. But with 44, again, who finished 16th on season 44? You don't know.
No shot.
I do. It was a girl.
You better hurry up.
I'll get it. Keep talking. I'll get it.
But like, who finished, I don't want to say 16th, who finished 14th on Tocantins?
Sandy? I don't know.
I'll know it if I think about it. Jeopardy. I'm not good at Jeopardy.
I think it was Jerry. But my point is, you remember who played Tocantins. You remembered Sandy, Jerry, Candace, like these players, Carolina from the early portion of that game.
Are we counting Bruce?
In 44?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Are we counting the Bruce Medivac?
Yeah.
Of course we do.
Yeah,
okay, sorry. Continue. I'll get there.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I couldn't even tell you who the pre-mergers, I couldn't confidently tell you who the pre-mergers were on 44 compared to 42. And I love Survivor. Like, that's what's the hardest part for me. Go ahead. Who is it?
Claire Rafson.
She was 16th. I thought she was 15th.
Shit, she's 15th. Helen Lee.
Okay, hold on. Now we got to look because I actually don't know the answer. I give you a trivia question.
I am a unique
It was
person to
Helen.
ask
Yeah,
this
Claire
question.
was. See, I knew Claire.
I unique person to ask this. I went to college with both Helen and Claire, so I knew the early boots of 44 very well. So
That's
maybe
actually
wrong,
funny.
maybe
And
wrong.
you still couldn't figure
You
it
got
out.
it on the third try, Ted.
And it still took you an hour and a half to get there. And so that's where I'm coming at this from. Like, it doesn't have to be a great theme. We make fun of Ghost Island, but you always remember that the tie happens in Ghost Island, right? You don't even have to think about it because you don't have to think about the number, right? But like with what was the controversial Gabler one? Everybody's gonna remember 43, but when you start talking about what is D season, we might remember, but the casuals don't remember. If I say Africa, everybody knows Lex, Ethan, Big Tom. You remember that. And yeah, that's a more iconic version of the show. But if I say Redemption Island, everybody says Boston Rob's Victory Lap. You know it. You know it inside and out. So I don't know what they have to do about the theming.
What's your favorite New Era tribe name too? Like that's a great point in the chat.
No idea.
Lulu losers.
Yeah, the Lulu
you know the
losers.
disaster tribes, but everybody else is like, who?
Yeah. You don't remember the names, and the names used to matter a lot.
Okay, I've got one, let me step in it, and then one, like, we've done a lot of this stuff, so it's time to make our own solutions of what we would do, probably.
Solutions?
So,
like, we don't do solutions, we do problems.
I've been starring some comments, and it's a thing. Is 51 going to do mandate of casting, of half and half? And here we go. I'm a professional casting person. I've been in CBS's office for diversity training and learning about implicit bias. You can look up all that stuff. I've been in that hour to 2 hour seminar of what did they care about. And one thing I want to say, whether you like it or not, I want to say whenever you're watching stuff on YouTube and it's like Survivor Maryland or Survivor Upper Peninsula or Survivor New York, all of those fan-based ones are full of mostly one race. They're full of a lot of gay men, and they're full of a lot of women. And they're very homogenized. They have the same stories. They have the same fights. They have the same, like, okay, there's not going to be a lot of love on this season because all the guys are gay and all the women are their friends. And like, as a gay man, I haven't tried to apply for one of those because I'm realizing, I would be a dime a dozen on a fan page one, but on a real season, I think that is a thing of like all these gay men want to be on Survivor so bad, but there's 1 or 2 a season. And the diversity that happens on this is we are learning more about countries I've never even heard of throughout the last 10 years of Survivor. We are learning about people who I don't know personally, but I know stories of certain races. I know certain stories of certain sexualities. I know certain stories of this stuff. Those were the first 40 seasons or 25 seasons. And it has become more important where it's something where if we don't show those people, there's places for them moving forward in their favorite shows, in their communities. If we don't know more about our fellow man, I'm trying to be a high school teacher this fall, and I want to teach film. And it's something where I could show you a really cool movie, but watching a really cool movie, watching television kind of helps you empathize and understand your fellow man. And I've told him plenty of examples of me watching reality TV growing up, thinking I can't be gay because I've only seen these super effeminate gay men on TV. And then that kind of not setting me back 10 years, but like if I had ever seen a gay man that had a voice that wasn't extremely effeminate and the gay man was literally crushing people like a Colby and got what was a muscle man dude and won 6 challenges and got to the end. Todd was a watershed moment for a lot of people in the community of this is somebody we weren't around for Richard's win whenever we start watching around Africa or Marquesas. And as we realize, like, why did we like Todd's win so much? It's a gay man winning. Earl wins. That's a watershed moment for plenty of people watching this stuff. We don't need less of those moments moving forward. If we're trying to have this be a touchstone for communities everywhere, we don't need, yes, maybe you look at stuff and you go, oh, I'm rolling my eyes at their thing where they go, I'm the first person from Odessa, Texas to ever play. That's my dumb version of this. I can't pick a country and say it's dumb. That is extremely rude. But if I said to the casting people, I want to be the first person from Odessa, Texas, and show what West Texas pride is all about, they'd be like, oh, okay, that kind of doesn't resonate. But if you're from a country in the middle of nowhere that nobody has heard of, and you have customs, you have personalities that maybe you have never seen, that is welcome, that is different, that is something of Kyle and Camilla. What a cool story. Yes, it maybe made them be like, we're not going to listen to other alliances as hard as we're going to listen to somebody else, because Guyana, Guyanese, like these are words that I don't know how to say Guyana 2 years ago. I don't know how to say Guyanese 2 years ago. Now I am a little bit more aware of it. When you go home, you look it up on Wikipedia. Oh, that's cool. That's where Guyana is. It's interesting. These are two people. That's crazy. They look different, but they're both Guyanese. Like, this is, if we're not going to leave Fiji, we kind of have to do this in casting, or it's going to get so homogenized and dull 5 seasons from now if you watch 24 white people who are all heterosexual play 5 seasons in a row.
And I mean, to say this, I don't think you ever go back to like what Guatemala was, right? I think 50% isn't going to happen anymore. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be as much of a push for it. I don't think that, I think people will talk about it still. I don't think you'll ever go back to Guatemala, but I think Blake's point is right, where it's like, you still need these different walks. Like, that's what Survivor was always based on, was different walks of life. And I think that that's the other problem that happened in the 40s, is a lot of these different walks of life were people who had very similar stories, right? Like, I think about Carla and Jesse bonding on season 43. They both were like, you know, obviously Jesse was in a gang and then Carla had her upbringing, but they both come from very similar backgrounds of, you know, struggling and what they had to overcome and, you know, implicit bias, like Blake was talking about. And then, but when you start to look at what their story is beyond that, it's like, she went to Cal, he went to Duke. It's like, oh, these are two people who went through there. Where's Dream?
These are both the people that quote unquote got out.
Yeah.
These are maybe something you've
Yeah.
heard of throughout. And like, as a casting person, you were probably like, not salivating, that's a crazy term, but you were like, this person is going to make great TV if I put on. But it is like, do you save one for next season, or do you let them be on the same tribe? Or do you go, well, Jesse's going to be on blue and then Carla's going to be on red, I switch them. But it is kind of like, do you let them play on the same season and have those wonderful conversations? Or do you mix them, like push to Jesse's going to go on 48, so now we can have, you remember Carla, here's the guy version of Jesse. That's the old way of thinking. I think the more people we have with these backgrounds on the season, the more options we have for this. And I know maybe you're at home being like, well, Blake, I am the guy from Texas that doesn't have a crazy country and a lot of culture. And like, how do I get on the show? That's something that maybe needs to be addressed too, of like, all right, you need to be as strong as Jonathan Young, or as smart as Drew Basile,
or Charlie,
and like, or obsessed with pop culture as Charlie or Ben Katzman is. Like, these are signposts for you of like, and like, why are you picking all these white people saying that? Like, I'm just more of like, this is the show you're watching now. And I will agree, 45 through 48, I think has leapt and bounds. 41 through 44. So I think we're trending, and there was some growing pains, and it's figured out. And I trust that I will find some people on 49 to like, but I also trust that on 49, there's going to be some people that I'm like, how the hell did this?
Well, and Tegwith, I know you're dying to get in here, but I just want to say one last thing here. Like, when I'm talking about dreams, right? It's not like, oh, now we want to go back to the old school version of Survivor casting where it's like, oh, the uneducated, like, black man. That was like the stereotype that was happening a lot early on. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, like, you need to have your Ralph, right? Like, again, going back to Redemption Island, I mentioned that way too much, but that's what's fresh in my head because that's what I'm watching. Your Ralph and your Philip are like, those are two people on the same season, and they actually get along to the point where Ralph's like, here's my vote, even though I spelt it file, which is kind of disturbing. But it's like these two people come from such different backgrounds, right? Ralph he gets the puzzle at Redemption Island and he can't do the puzzle because this is a guy who's a farmer who doesn't really understand the questions Jeff is asking him sometimes, but he really excels at his portion of life, right? Like where he is in his life. And that's what I'm saying is like, that doesn't mean everybody from the South now needs to be a hick again, because that's what you were doing for a period of time there. And that wasn't good. It was kind of like here's your country guy. That's not what we're talking about, right? Yeah, Big Tom is iconic, but that doesn't mean everybody from Virginia who's a farmer needs to be Big Tom, where, he's got great sound bites. Sometimes you can't understand what he's saying, though. But you need to find that balance. And I think when it starts to be, we're all people who have succeeded so well, and we're all graduates from these great schools, and we all have masters from these great schools, that's not great for the show. And I think when you're talking about diversity, try to keep it at the 50%, people of color as much as you can, which I don't think that they're going to hit 50% every season. We're already seeing it in season 50 that they're not. But if you're going to get to that point, I think they also need to be looking at, okay, we need different stories for these people, because that's also, I think it's hard to differentiate some of the seasons. A lot of the stories start to feel really, really, really similar, because so many of the people that they're casting now are like, wow, they've already overcome it. No, I want underdogs and I want top dogs. I want both on my season. I think that's why 48's cast gets the nomination, because you have underdogs and top dogs. And then you have people who maybe don't fit into the underdog or the top dog in the way that you might have thought that they were going to originally, because their backstory, like Joe looks like a top dog for sure. And you find out his backstory and you're like, all right, this guy's story, he's been through it. Like, this is a tough life that this guy has had for some moments. And what's he going to do? So I just wanted to say that, because I don't want it to be like, oh, Phil, you're just wanting, no, it's like Dream's a great casting choice. We need to find a mix. And I think that's what was missing a little bit. I think that's what Blake's also getting at, is let's hear the stories.
Yeah. And I think that this also goes not only into casting, I think this just goes to show, I think when you look at Survivor New Era, I think we've said this, I've said this 1,000 times. The issue a lot of people have is they can't tell the difference. But not only does the casting help, we also need to switch up the format, because I think diversity in casting is important. Diversity in the format that they're also putting Survivor out is also important. Using the same challenges over and over again, 3 tribes of 6 over and over again. No swap for a while, and there is a swap. It's just, I think when you do production, it's really easy to say, okay, we're going to do 2 seasons. We're going to do these 2 seasons the same. And then we'll figure out what was wrong, and the next, time we'll do that. I think the thing that they need to do is, all right, here's one season. This season, we are going to do X, Y, and Z. And then in this season, we're going to do A, B, and C. And I think that is what fans want. Fans want to be kept on our toes. Because when the same thing happens over and over again, when we hear the same stories, when we see the same people, when we see the same challenges, like, it gets boring. And so I think that is as boring as Survivor can get, which in my opinion is not that boring. But, I think that's really what we need. And I think, another way, we were talking about money earlier. I think another way that they could save money is doing simpler challenges. Because one thing I learned is the setup time for some of these challenges can be 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. The build time can be up to 5 weeks long. If we did a trivia of a Fiji trivia of where they are, the islands that they're at, right? Like, or one of the stories at
bring
night,
back the Ghost Fruit Challenge.
Like, that doesn't need any.
And what about, just going to this, what about the memory challenge?
Yeah.
Here's a block. Okay, now what did I say? I said 12 things. Now bring them back to me in order. What was the first thing I said? Like, what? Those are so simple. Just get a card. Mm-hmm.
Literally, the counting, the counting the coconuts and the fish and all of that stuff. Like, there are things that I think they could also save time and money by also doing simpler challenges. But I think the thing that the issue Survivor has that I really hope they remedy in the 50s is looking at the challenging aspects of Survivor in a different way. Survivor is hard because you're living out on an island, you're sleeping out you're sleeping out in the wilderness, you don't have a lot of food, all that stuff. But it doesn't also need to be hard because they're also lifting 50-pound puzzle pieces. That can happen every once in a while. Maybe it's hard because you're taxing your memory, you're taxing your brain. Maybe it's hard because you actually didn't get to know your castmates, and the quiz of who has their ears pierced or who doesn't have any piercings, you don't know. Like, there are different ways for something to be hard, and I think they're leaning in the last 10 10 seasons, they've leaned way too much in the, oh, look how much, look how taxing it is. Oh, there, it's so hard. Look how hard it is that, only Jonathan can finish this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's the big thing personally that they need to really look at in the 50s to really, I think, make it interesting for the viewers again.
In the 20s and 30s, they went too much to pointless physical portion puzzle, pointless physical portion puzzle, endurance, pointless physical portion puzzle. They went too much with, and then endurance. Like they went too much with that. They almost overcorrected now into the 40s where it's super physical. And I like the physical challenges. I do think that they're fun. I think they lead to some really great moments. But at the same time, I do agree, like, bring us back some of these classics because they're not hard to build. You can do them with a little bit less. And if you need to figure out a way to do this, I think that would be more exciting. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that could be more exciting. So
I just want to say, just notice how we're also getting seasons where the same person is winning over and over and over again. Do you think that that is possibly because the same challenge, you're doing the same challenge over and over and over again, or similar challenges, or that thing people can prepare for? Like we get, in 48, it's either David, Joe, or Kyle. I mean, I guess Camilla won a couple of times too, but I just feel like we're hitting these landmarks of, oh, if you win this next one, you will have tied or you will have beaten the most time. And I feel like I've heard that so many times in the last, like, I don't know,
Rachel
4 or 5 seasons.
Rachel did it. Joe almost did it here.
Kyle.
But they never do the whole like, oh, Andy, you voted correctly 5 times in a row. Mm-hmm. That hasn't been done in 6 years. Like we do. Like it's easier to show parts of our show than others, for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. I just think that there's a way to, like, it would be interesting, where if somebody can, I feel like I would be terrible at these challenges. I mean, I'm looking at it from my point of view, right? I'd be terrible at these challenges. Give me a memory challenge any day of the week, but also give me 45 minutes to do it. No, I'm just...
yeah.
But I just think that it makes it slightly more interesting.
And like, my complaint is like, I'm not going to be good at Survivor if I do go on, but if I somehow go on and I make it to emerge and the next 5 challenges are balance challenges, I don't have a shot at winning any of those. And there was I think 5 or 6 seasons in a row where it was like, at final 12, we're going to balance on this. We're going to balance on this. We're going to balance this. We're going to balance this. We're going to balance this. And it was like, oh my God, like if you're a strong man, I'm sure you're like, Jeff, what happened? And like, I know most people are like, well, we don't want the strong man to win everything. And it's like, well, we made it for like, who's done the most Pilates for the many years. And who, if you top Pilates, you're making final 7. And
then 48 overcorrected. And all of a sudden we're just doing forearm strength the entire time. And it's like, what are we doing?
You're just like, what the hell? And those guys won those. And it was kind of cool. Okay. There was something else I was going to say, where I was agreeing, like, okay, that makes sense. I don't remember, but I like solutions.
I mean, we talked about a lot here. Go ahead.
I almost,
that was the fake out.
It literally was almost there. I'm thinking about like executives and what are they thinking? That's what I'm saying. Here we go. What did we just do? We talked about this for an hour. And I think we have 3 different viewpoints. We have 3 different skills. We have 3 different gravities. We have 3 different whatevers. But one thing we all share is I truly do believe that we all love Survivor. And I think that's where we're approaching it of, if we talk about this for an hour because we have the love part of it, and I'm not saying hire us Survivor, but I'm wondering if the hour-long conversation that Survivor people are talking about, do they approach it with love and continuously something from the bottom of their heart? Or is it the bottom line of the wallet? Is it the bottom line of how do we get as many people watching this? And I think we've been dealing with that for 20 years in entertainment of like, what is better? Can we spend a little more money and make a better product and hope the audience comes? Or the algorithms are saying this? And it does feel like 41 through 44 was a little bit more algorithm-y of like, what if we said, like, I'm an AstroTurf. I'm as confused as a goat on AstroTurf. That's hilarious.
Oh my God, I forgot that happened.
Let's put the idols inside of a cage. Like, how come that season of Survivor wasn't called like Caged Rage or something? And then put the cage motif throughout all the challenges. The idols are in cages. the tribal's in a cage. Jeff's in a cage during this one part, and you're like, what the hell is going on? This is kind of cool though. That was the cage season, right?
This is actually a very good season. Somebody write this down.
Yeah.
I'd watch.
And,
I love
and you're
that
like, we're coming at this from love, but whenever the Survivor powers that be, people call, let's pray to Survivor gods, you can see their names at the end of every episode. What are they doing to make 51 through 55 good? Or is it all like, how can we do this for $8,000 cheaper in this department? This department has to be $20,000 cheaper.
It's a mix.
It's
right?
worried to me. Worrying.
It's a mix though, and I think this is how you have to look at it. Like, no matter what your job is, no matter how much you love your job, unless you're like a pure artist and you're Christopher Nolan about to make a movie and you're sitting, yeah, Blake's a pure artist, my ass. And so you're sitting there and you're about to make a movie where you're the writer, you're the director, you're doing all of this, and you're going to make all these decisions. Most people are saying, okay, what's the easiest way to get through my day today? Right? Like, I like my job quite a bit.
I have to go home and pick up my kid.
Yeah, but most of, like, today I was like, all right, I just got to get to 5 o'clock so I can do these podcasts and that'll be fun. And like, you know, you're still counting down the moments. And so we're doing this definitely more as a passion project. And I think that there are some people in the Survivor world who do it as a passion project, 100%. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think there's other people who are like, great, I'm going to go get my paycheck. And isn't it cool that I work on Survivor? But look, I had the Warner Brothers job. I've worked at Warner Brothers before. And I had that job where every time I called back to one of my family members or friends who lived on the East Coast, they're like, oh, that's crazy. So good for you. And then I would tell all my friends in LA, like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I hate my life every second of it. I can't wait to get home. I don't care if that show is good. I don't care what happens because I hated my job.
You
and
canceled Batgirl?
I did it all by myself. But I think that's so that's where there is a mix, right? I think that when you're passionately planning like the theme for a season or something, when you're sitting down, I truly do think, like, Blake, and you probably know this better, but if you're casting a season of Survivor, you are probably having a pretty good time of like, okay, these are the 75 people that I actually want to hear from beyond what I saw their video of. That probably is fun. But when it gets down to the mundane, like, what are we going to do for a challenge at this point? Unless you're John Kierhofer, you're probably sitting there saying, I don't really care what's going to be the smallest build for our team.
Let's make a shelf that we have to bounce a ball on and bring that back 4 more seasons because we used to play that to pass time in a hotel room. Is like,
yeah.
I don't what?
Well, because look, I mean, Will did challenges, right? Will would design the challenges. Will is damn passionate about that. I'm not saying the other people that he works with aren't. I'm just saying, like, when Will was doing these challenges and stuff, and if you watch some of the shows that Will has worked on since, like, Will, if he has like that one challenge he did in season, was it 35 or 36 with the spinning signpost? That challenge is amazing. They never brought it back, but it is
the Chris Noble thing.
It's the one where he has to spin it, and if it hits like the edge, it like knocks it. So you have to get all the signposts right. It's not where you throw it. It's where like you build the puzzle and then you spin it and it has to go through the part that's already fixed.
Oh,
it's really cool. And it's like a 3-side puzzle. It's a really good puzzle. And they only did it the one time because I think it's a little bit tougher of a build. But like, I know how passionate Will is about that type of stuff. And I'm not just saying that because he's not here. Normally I'd be insulting and be like, Will's terrible at his job. Oh my God, he sucks. I don't know how he keeps getting hired. But like, he cares about it deeply. But at the same time, now you get into a show where you're on your 50th season, you might start to say like, okay, what's just the easiest way to do this? Like, what do the fans care about the most? And Tegworth, I think you bring up a really good point because I've always felt that lack of challenge diversity is a big problem in the show. But you know what? How many of the other people who are watching really care about that? My uncle watches the show for the challenges. He doesn't remember what was on 3 seasons ago. He just loves that they're physical and that they're doing stuff.
Your uncle's crazy.
My uncle has, dude, when you try to have a conversation with him about why do you think this person was voted out? He's like, yeah, but that person's weak. And it's like, oh, okay, there we go. Put you
Didn't
on
get enough
Survivor.
fish, did they?
Yeah, exactly. Put you on Survivor. You totally understand it.
Yeah,
I think that's. You go first. I'm
Oh no, you go ahead. I was gonna compare it to, because I think that Survivor is a lot like I compare it to sports a lot, just like how we cover it, how the online community, all that stuff. But I also think that like the Survivor production team is a lot like a front office of like a baseball team, where they are so driven by obviously wanting to win, to be the best, to win the World Series or whatever else. To build a good team, but also they're driven because everything is a business, right? And I think that like you bring up casuals. I don't know if your uncle's a casual. He sounds like there are
very much.
Yeah. So that's the thing that like super fans will forget a lot, that we are probably 20% of the people that view this show,
If
right?
that.
Like I think that I'm giving us a lot of leeway. And I think that Survivor does do things to like throw things to us, right? But I also think that, you know, people watch Hunter putting those logos in order. And I talked to, you know, my boss who watches Survivor, and he was like, who could do that? That's insane. I hated that. When I'm like, oh yeah,
I'm right
who could
here.
do that?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. Absolutely not. I
Yeah,
don't know
why
what
is
you're
that the
talking
easiest
about.
challenge in Survivor history? The
Yeah.
one that I would win 1,000% of the time.
Exactly. And so I think that's one thing that Survivor super fans like myself, like, you know, probably everyone listening will forget, is we are a smaller population that does matter, because people watch no matter what. And I think they do need to keep in mind that, hey, we're here too. But we are not the people. That's why they brought Joe back. People loved Joe, loved him.
I'm loving this baseball front office analogy. So I'm a big analogy guy. So let's do it a little bit more of like, some people just want to go watch a baseball game for 3 hours and enjoy the sun, eat a hot dog. And Survivor is nailing that crowd right now of like, if you tune into an episode without any thought process, I think the 90-minute episodes do kind of give you the full story of this episodic content. I do think they remind you enough with the last time on. I'm not saying if you do any minute of the episode, but if you're like, oh, I caught this at the beginning, I am eating my kids' cuisine, let's watch something. It's like, okay, cool. You're going to know what's going on. I do think there's the diehard fans that like the Mets haven't won in 30 years or whatever, or like right now the Traders is kind of like the Dodgers of like, they're getting all the attention. They're winning all the awards. They're kicking your ass. They traded for better players. They signed everyone this summer. And you're trying to sign a subpar team of all-stars in our opinions. And I don't think it's going to go toe-to-toe with them. And like, you also pissed off the old audience of like, you didn't say our Hall of Famer, Rob, has a podcast guy. You also spit in his face.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's a crazy way to think about this, of those people don't lose their jobs very often.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go decades of like, didn't you have fun going to Petco Park? Like, it's a great baseball park. They haven't won a championship pretty much ever. That's the Padres.
Yeah,
and it's like, but you love baseball if you're in San Diego, and all of our super fans are like, what the hell? But I do think that's a way you could talk to like more different fans of like, this is why this matters. Of, do we want to be the Traders? We're almost Survivors like the Yankees almost, of like, we had we kicked everyone's ass in 2000 through 2008. More than anybody will kick ass in the history of television. We have 40 million people that watch these episodes. It'll never get better than this. Is it worth trying to get back to that old thing, or being like, come look at the hollowed halls we have of Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And that's where Yogi Berra sat. I don't even know if that's a Yankee guy, but like Babe Ruth was over there, and you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And I think like with that, it's like you go to Yankee Stadium, it's like a museum. Is Survivor going to be a museum, right? Like, you don't want it to be that. Oh, remember this challenge where you used to hang on the pole and the footholds used to be bigger so you could stand there for longer. Now they're smaller. It's like, I don't really want to remember that all the time. Like, give me unique.
Parvati killed this challenge.
Yeah.
I'm like, Parvati's not on this season, and now it is harder for like. But if we're baseballing, it's like, this is the first time. Like, Kershaw just threw 15 strikes. It's the first time since 15 strikeouts 30 years ago. Is kind of well.
You know what? And you know what's more interesting than 3 of you have to sit out for a bag of rice? All right, we're going to tempt you down for food now. That's more interesting. Like,
Take
you're
off
struggling?
your clothes for peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah, okay, Blake. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's more interesting, and I think we've lost some of the fun stuff with that. So, I don't know. I think that beyond 50.
So how do we fix it? Go for it.
How do we fix it, dude? I mean, we're at an hour and a half. I got to
Solutions.
eat dinner. I thought we were doing an hour.
Solutions. You got 3 minutes of solutions for each of us.
All right, here's what I'll go first, because this is what I think the show is going to be. Post 50, we're going to get 24 players in at least one season, and people are going to be like, what the hell? I think it's going to work. I think that we will probably get that in a fans versus favorites, a blood versus water type season where we will have returning players. I think that the norm now for full returning player seasons is 24. Because if they're able to make it work for season 50, then they are going to try to do that as much as they can for future seasons. And that'll be a way to build up their base. Maybe fans versus favorites, maybe blood versus water. That goes back to 18 or 20 or something like that. But I think 24 will be tried in another returning player season after this, because I do think that 50 is going to be a success because every returning player season is a success. Even the ones that stink do a good thing for ratings and they get the hype around the show. And that's all that Survivor wants right now, I think. And that's what they need going into the 50. So I think we'll see returning players. Themes, I think we're going to get names at least back for the seasons. Even if we don't get themes, they might name a season Pirates Cove and there's no Cove and there's no Pirates, but that's okay. Just give it a name. That's what we need. And I think we're going to start to see that. So I think that'll come back. 39 days is done. We're not going back to that. I would be shocked. We're staying in Fiji, like all of that. I think that we are going to see them try to draw on the good parts of 45 through 49, but mostly try to say what worked for us when the show was really working. And when the show was really working was in Survivor, not the 20s, but like the late 20s into the 30s. It's never going to be as popular as it was in the first 20 seasons. So how do we get back to what it was in even the 30s? And so I think that you're going to start to see the dissolution of some of these journeys from some of these things that have felt forced in the 40s. Journeys have felt forced. The Mergatory has felt forced. I think that some of these things are going to go away and they're going to start to look at what do people actually watch Survivor for. I think they're probably going to start thinking about what is Survivor after Jeff, but I don't think Survivor is going to be canceled because Jeff leaves. I don't think it'll be canceled before Jeff leaves. I think that it'll ultimately just turn into, if Jeff is starting to feel like he's on his way out, doesn't want to do it anymore, they're going to start to prep somebody for it in some way. Like I said, we either do challenges, tribals, something like that. But I think that the 50s, not a bold prediction, but I think the 50s will be better than the 40s, because I do think that the 50s are going to, I feel like in the 40s, they had some things that they felt they had to stick with. 3 tribes of 6, all of that. I feel that they are going to move away from that in the 50s. We're going to start to see some 2 tribe starts. We might even see a 4 tribe start, because the show is going to feel that they can do it because it's a new era of Survivor and we don't need to be so homogenous. And I think that's going to be revealed in the casting as well. And I've said this for a while now. I do think we're getting a fans versus favorites 3 during this era, because CBS and production and stuff have been doing so much more stuff with real fans in the community. And I think you have so many diehard fans in this community that it would probably be people you've kind of heard of. That is kind of like a pseudo celebrity type season. Just trying to get me and Teg with on the podcast.
The girl with the dress.
Right? Just trying to, yeah, there you go. I'm just trying to get us on the season here. That's all I'm trying to do. But I think that you're going to see a fans versus favorites 3 type season, because I just think that that is what the show has hit. And now you can actually have players play with people who know them so well, who they might have even met already. And that's not going to lead to just domination by the side that has played the game before. And it's going to lead to more interaction. And I think this is the perfect time to do it. So that's what I think is going to happen in the 50s. And I used 4 minutes. So I think Blake gets 2, Tegwith gets 3.
Teg, you go first.
Oh, okay. So we're just saying what we think is going to happen, because I think that there are
just some solutions that you nail.
I've got a 4-pronged approach for the solution. What is that? A fork? Yeah. So number 1, I think it is
terrifying.
This is the same thing. Keeping the casting solid. I genuinely think the casting in the 40s has been so good. You said you guys didn't like it. I think it was I think I liked 41, 42, and 43 even. I do think they got stronger throughout. And I think that is solid. And I think that is something that they should keep, not the same, but keep on the path that they're on. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I definitely think, and I really think this will happen, but I think keeping returning players in the mix is the most important thing to do in the 50s. I think not having any returning players seasons in the 40s was another one of the reasons why it felt so homogenous, because there was nothing like, if you can't remember Redemption Island, you'd remember, I'm talking about Boss and Rob's season, right? The players, new players, it's harder to go back to that. It's harder to reference them. And so I think bringing them back will definitely help. I think that they, like I said earlier, I think there's going to be 1 fully returning, 1 half returning, and then 2 captains, whether that's 2 or 3, I could see happening. And then the next prong would be bringing back I mean, I'm saying pretty much what you said, Phil, but names, because the thing is, casuals need to be able to differentiate seasons. I feel like I can in my head if I have a second, and I think about this all of the time, every single day. If I talk to my boss, who is somebody who just watches in passing when he has the time, like it's hard for him to differentiate seasons when we're talking about things. And I think that we need to, this kind of bigger picture needs to be more tailored towards the casuals, because that's who I think have the most trouble. If the super fans are having trouble, the casuals are having an even harder time. And I think that's a really, really big way that they could help that. I really think they need to bring like a pre-merge season back, like some kind of, there are new themes that they could do that I think would be interesting. And then the last prong, I think, is keeping the season different from the season before. So changing challenges, changing if it's a final 2 or final 3, changing if it's fire making versus no fire making. Honestly, almost everything that we, the fans, voted on for 50, put them in a hat and draw out what it's going to be every single season to keep it different. It doesn't have to be crazy, but just, again, seeing the same thing over and over again for 9 seasons, it's confusing. So this all really just goes back to making it easier to differentiate. And I think that's what brings back fans, is saying, oh, I loved that season because of X, Y, and Z. But if you can't remember why you loved that season because it also was similar to the season before that, it's harder, I think, to get that super fan status. So that's my 4 prongs, my fork.
Or whatever scary thing Blake did with his fingers before. That was terrifying.
I like that. My thought process is piggybacking on that. I'm agreeing and doing my layer of it. We just asked our entire fan base these questions. We just did 50 with the answer to those questions. Of that, which one of those were pressure points on production? Of those questions, which ones did, that worked kind of well? Keep the ones that worked well. Keep the ones that, whatever, try them again. Of like, we know our fans like this amount of idols, or this amount of this thing, or they'd said, please God, get rid of Final 4 tiebreaker of fire. Like, I think I'm very interested to watch 50 from week to week, to not only see it for that season, but to see it. This is the glimpse of 51 through 55. Which ones worked? Which ones were like, we're going to, the fans don't know what they're talking about. The fans don't know what they're talking about a large portion of the time. I truly do believe that. And it does make sense of somebody like Jeff Probst being like, I know better because I've been the one who's stepped on every beach in my entire life. But I do think there's a mix of that can work. I do like the thought process of, I shouldn't be able to know what my season is going to be like before I leave my house and get on the plane to Fiji. And I'm sorry, that really pissed me off with Carson in 43, and I will never get over it, of him going, I've already built 5 of these puzzles. And that's why I'm so good at this, and I'm going to get out of this squirrely situation because I know the answer to this already. And Jeff goes, what an icon! I did not see that as iconic. I saw that as the production is so lazy that people have caught up to you. Mm-hmm. And then we we cast another person who, I'm Hunter. I've built all these challenges in my backyard. We saw that as a positive thing. We should have enough diversity in season and challenges and puzzles that nobody will ever go, I already know what's going to happen. That is the worst case scenario of, I want my contestants to be as nervous going into every challenge because they have no idea what could possibly happen, instead of being like, well, it's final 15. Like, we're about to merge, so it's going to be this one I've seen 3 times. And honestly, I reached out. I'm a super fan. I reached out to Dwight from that one season, and Dwight told me how to do this one. And then you're like, how are we going to edit that? Of like, why did Blake know how to do this challenge way better than every other challenge? Well, he talked to Dwight about it. That's a disaster. Like, I think whenever we put the effort into making these things work, if our contestants, I mean, I hate to dog on this guy again, but Shaheen kind of had a plan of how he was going to do all of his Survivor season. And that was less interesting than if Shaheen is surprised every time he steps on the beach, then the people at home are going to be surprised.
And then you're doing something right. Yeah, I agree with that. Because I do think that that's a big problem. You know what's going to happen at Final 12. You know what's going to happen at Final 11. You know that there's going to be a split at some point. You know that, what's going to happen in the pre-merge. Like, that is definitely something that I feel is a problem. And I hope, I think about it, today's the first day of Survivor casting. Like we said, it's open. It's back. That's why we're doing this podcast today. And
go apply.
Yeah, go apply. Yeah, exactly. And I think, though, if you're going out on that island, you want that sense of what are the twists and turns that are going to be thrown at me. That doesn't mean let's go Justin ourselves out of this game where it's like play a dice game and let's ruin everything for you. It's let's just see what this looks like. Like, I can't wait to see what they're going to throw at me because it's not going to be game breaking like a lot of the 40s twists were. It's just going to be something that's going to keep me on my toes, like what we saw a lot in the teens and in the 30s. And I think that's what Survivor needs to go back to for sure. So
I know we want to end. I just came up with a very good idea that I think that they should do, and I'll keep this brief. What I think Survivor needs to do is have on payroll a super fan, and their whole job is in production while they're coming out with the outline of the season, have a super fan sitting in there, and it's like the editor of a book. You give the final plan of what we are going to do for the season to the super fan, and just be like, "What are you? Oh, boo!" Like, that's what they need. They need somebody on the super fan changes every season or every cycle. So every 2 seasons, same super fan. Then the next one, it's a different one. That way it's always different. Somebody is like that. People will hate that. People will love that. People will hate that. People will love that. I also think they should do that for like any kind of book being turned into a movie, anything like that. Just have one fan in the room being paid to tell their honest, truth.
We got to get rid of rice discussions, Jeff. This shit sucks.
And I think honestly, I think that's something that they could do. And I think that they should do it. And so that is my pitch to CBS. I don't even want to do it, but somebody should, and I think it would help.
St. Cliffo.
I like that idea, Tegwith, honestly, because you know what? Sometimes it's hard to see it when you're too close to it, right? It's you write something, you write a paper, you write anything. It's like, I'm too close, so I need somebody else to read it. Does this make sense? Because I don't know if it makes sense anymore. And a super fan would be good at that. You just can't get a super fan who's power hungry. Like, I don't know, the person to the left or right of me, whatever he is. It's definitely the person on the same level as me. That's what I'm saying here. But all right, that's going to wrap.
What I would do is kill Jeff.
This is a great podcast. I'm really happy we did this. I thought it was going to be an hour. It's an hour and 37 now, and I want to go eat dinner. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We are going to have a lot more going on still for Survivor 50 coverage. Obviously, still going through defining episodes, still going through everything you need to know about. Who is the everything you need to know about tomorrow, you might ask? Let me see.
Drum roll.
I gotta actually look it up. It's gonna take me a second. So everything you need to know about.
Wait, is Russ W. Russell Wentz or no?
We have Jenna. We have D coming out tomorrow. D is tomorrow, and then Jenna will be on Thursday. So D tomorrow, Jenna Thursday. Tegwith, that's actually your last one. So
yeah, Jenna is I think my last one.
That's it. And then I actually have to record with Will and Blake because we have no more recorded after that. So Blake, what are you doing tomorrow? So anyway, we're doing that. We're gonna be still covering all of those things. We got our defining episodes coming out, which I think our last one that we put out was Aubrey, which means that the next one we're going to be putting out should be Tiffany. Yeah.
Can I just also say before you sign off, if you're not listening to those defining episodes, I listened to a bunch over the weekend and it got me very excited for season 50. Specifically, the Aubrey one was so good. I was a little down on Aubrey. Listening to the episode really got me hyped to see her. And so I think, it should be in your queue at some point. They're very good. I'm not on them, so I'm not getting anything by saying this, but they're very good and they really do. They made me very excited for
Tegwith did ask me, how many more do you have left? And I was like, is this like, are you recruiting yourself, Tegwith? Is that what's happening?
No, I'm going to make a playlist on TikTok because I think people will like it. I think people really would like it.
Yeah, because I was going to say we need a graphic or something because those are really fun. And even as I'm rewatching them, it is crazy to see like the best players do crazy shit that you kind of forgot they did. The Aubrey one, I was like, oh my God, that move on Debbie is just beautiful. It's so good. So yeah, check those out. We're doing all our Patreon stuff. We're still going through Nicaragua right now for Every Season Matters. Then we're going to Redemption Island. So we're into the dark days, but it's actually been quite fun, or at least polarizing conversations. And we got Teg Talks, which the second episode drops tomorrow. Teg with and McKenna did a Brant steal of the DC heroes and villains. So they redid heroes versus villains with those characters. So check that one out. Blake and I still do our casting episode. Will and I are still doing Rock Draw. John and I are doing movies. We got Armageddon dropping tomorrow, which who doesn't want to talk about Armageddon? Blake's eyes lit up at that. And I'm finishing Australian Survivor Heroes versus Villains this week. So plenty going on here on the channel. And then I get into Titans versus Rebel. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm going to go eat. Bye, everybody.